So it's round 8 of the big Premiership review show. It's very cold in the garage, the hat is on, so excuse that, but let's have a look at the table. A little bit of movement. I think the big story is, though, we've got the two West Country rivals pushing clear on 34 points, Bath and Bristol. Bristol having one less, but with all those bonus points, 10 amazingly, they're equal on 34. Saracens pushing up as well on 29 points. Leicester dropping down, but still in the top 4. And it's a bit of a bun fight, I think, between the rest. It does look to me like it's going to be Bath, I think, sticking in there with the strength of their pack. I cannot see them dropping out. Bristol just pick up so many points. Even if they lose, they get bonus points. So I think, no, they're very likely to stay. I also think Saracens, they've got a lot of quality there. They can play lots of different ways. Very strong pack. They're likely to stay. So at the moment, my punt would be those 3 stay, and then it's a fight for the 4th spot. But of course, lots could happen. All the way down to Saints there, sitting on 8th, but still, they're incredibly dangerous. We saw what happened when they woke up against Saracens. But then Newcastle and Exeter definitely languishing there on the bottom. Only 2 points between them, despite Newcastle winning 2 and Exeter 0. So on to the first game, Gloucester 14, Harlequins, the big fat 0. Always horrible when you score absolutely nothing. A tough game, but my initial impression after the first 10 minutes were loads of Harlequins running phases, maul attacks, but physically Gloucester were the guys who were really up for it. It's that old adage in amateur rugby, do you want it more? And this was a classic here, even in professional rugby. It's still true. Harlequins just didn't quite want it as much, and Gloucester was so voracious in defence especially. The line speed was amazing. Gloucester, less phases, I guess, in attack, but more metres, especially after contact, which again shows that more wanting it, if you like. More scrum dominance, that definitely helped. A rock-solid platform from that scrum really set up quite a pedestrian play for the first try, to be honest. It's 2 good double holding lines, but even so, that's enough for Anscombe to create the overlap with a nice over-the-top pass. I mean, that is his big strength at the moment. Anscombe's big long passes. He's good at selecting passes. So that's 7-0. Lovely wide conversion from Santi Carreras. Some good pumas in this game, that's for sure. Then on 15 minutes, we had the young battle of the England props having a go at each other. It's Fazagbon versus Finn Baxter, with Fazagbon winning this one, although he did go off injured. I hope he's okay, because Six Nations, I think, is calling for him. That would be exciting. On 17 minutes, I'm making the note that Quins just look desperate to run their shapes, rather than ensuring go forward first. They're getting caught out, making mistakes behind the gain line, and I like how Gloucester are rushing them for 3 metres up in defence, and then holding to make sure they make those tackles. I do like that controlled, but still aggressive defence. Seb Atkinson was really good in the midfield, along with Welsh international Max Llewellyn. They were a good pairing for sure, taking the ball hard to the line, but still good hands, so good game for them. Then on 22 minutes, a bit of a defensive disaster as Dombrandt and Anianwu let the lumbering prop Knight clean through on a break, and Quins defensively concede metres at will, and it's very much, again, a slow-motion break, but still too good for Quins. I don't quite know what to make of it. Were Gloucester really good in attack, or were Harlequins particularly rubbish, or a bit of both? But Anscombe just saunters through a half gap, and then again, fairly slow but controlled offloads from Gloucester is still too much for Quins, and it looks like they're chasing shadows. It looks like they're playing a team playing at 100 miles an hour, but I'm not sure they are. But anyway, good stuff from Gloucester. Fazagbon stretches out to score, but just drops it a bit short, so that could have been a try there. But then a few minutes later, Fazagbon does make a decisive play in the scrum as he folds up Baxter like he's a deck chair, wins a penalty, go to the 5-metre maul, and then embarrassing Harlequins, really rolling them backwards like they're schoolboys. Great throw from Seb Blake as well. He's definitely a guy in the England mix. I haven't mentioned him much, and you guys say he should be in there, and I think you're right. And Gloucester just squashing Quins at the moment, 14-0 on 27 minutes. That's kind of the final score. But Quins are getting decent positions, but they're not making the game line. Marcus Smith almost throws a forward ball on 32 minutes for a knock-on, and the Gloucester defence just showing that hunger, disrupting everything. Yeah, and a pity Fazagbon goes off, seems like an ankle injury. Yeah, I hope he's okay. Cunningham South seems to step it up a little bit with some big carries, but we know his Achilles heel can be ball retention, and he spills it with 2 minutes to go before half-time. No Fazagbon in the scrum, but still the scrum dominates, so they can back each other up, which is great. Santi Carreras playing a really good game. Boom's a monster 60-metre touch finder. He is wanted by other Premiership clubs, is Carreras, and you can see why, to be honest. Jack Clement rolls off a maul, but then another good Argentinian, the winger Isgro for Harlequins, holds him up. These Pumas are absolute class. So 14-0 at half-time. Gloucester miles the better team. And even though Harlequins do up it a little bit, it's still Gloucester who are hungry all the way to the end. So I'm not going to make too much of this second half because there's no real scores. I think Thomas Williams was once again absolutely fantastic. Carreras, like I said, was decent, and that Gloucester pack was ferocious, horrible, great line speed, good fitness as well. You've got to say, they were looking pretty strong there, so good win for Gloucester against Harlequins. Harlequins scratching their heads there. They can't go into games and just throw the ball around and expect things to open up. Then we had Leicester at home, Welford Road. They're in decent form, they look good in Europe, and they got smashed by a blistering first half from Bristol. So it was 24-54 at the end. Just an amazing score. I think it was a record score of some respect. But what a statement from the Bears. They know they were a little bit better in Europe than the scoreline suggested, but they did show in the Premiership they are serious contenders, and the way they play can beat absolutely anyone. And boy, did they make that statement. Absolutely amazing. You know they're going to go from anywhere, and they can give oppositions tries, and they did give a couple of tries away in this first half. I mean, you're going to live by the sword, die by the sword. And as they try and break out of their 22, they give the ball away, and Rensburg gets done a couple of times in defence, not good for him. Good injection of pace in attack from big Freddie Stewart, and sets up Ollie Hassel-Collins for a really good finish, barrelling through the little scrum half Randall, so you think, oh, maybe Bristol are going to overplay, and Leicester are going to squash them. So early, dangerous signs there for Bristol, but they get it going. Then on 9 minutes, the Bears perfectly punish a slip from Pollard as he tries to clear. Really good delayed pass from McGinty. Genge is through, who had a fantastic game in the Premiership. Genge looks an absolute world beater. Can he do the same against top opposition is the question, but it's great to see him fit and enjoying his rugby. Perfect 2v1 to O'Gray. And the Tigers may be a little slow to get back in defence, but they weren't expecting to defend quite so early because that kick obviously went hardly anywhere. Then on 30 minutes though, it's the third poor kick in a row from Pollard. He goes to chip for himself, really nothing's on, and Bears go for another lovely transition attack. Again, Leicester too slow to deal with it. Lock Cameron Henderson looked particularly ponderous as he slips off the rampaging Ellis Genge once again for a mirror image, setting up O'Gray for his second eventually. So really good transition play. Leicester far too slow. You cannot give Bristol chances because they're so lethal. Now, I'll just talk a little bit about Bristol's attack again. I know I've said lots before, but it looks like chaos, but it actually follows a rather sensible strategy, which is simply, once you have momentum, you get behind the opposition with a clean break, a half break, you just don't take your foot off the accelerator until a try is scored. It doesn't matter what happens, pop off the floor, quick pick and go, letting Randall make a pass or making a break, it doesn't matter as long as it's quick and it keeps the defence backtracking. And that's what we got for that second O'Gray try, and they do this again and again. So it's 5-14, but a mirror image of the first Leicester try as Bristol try and go from deep and muck up an attack. I think there's a flick that goes wrong there, and it's a Christmas gift for Ollie Hassel-Collins' second. So pretty close on 16 minutes there, 12-14, but ironically Bristol have set up all four tries, even though it's two each way. What is true is the Tigers cannot handle Bristol's attacking prowess. You can hear audibly they're calling when Harry Randall was breaking. They're shouting Randall because they know he's such a threat, but shouting doesn't make a tackle, and he's just too sharp off the base, sucking in two defenders, and then that chaos attack does the rest. Lovely inside ball to Ibitoy, who's fantastic, and Ralvovo was fantastic. He was playing 13, stepping amazingly. He does Stewart like he's standing still, which is Stewart's one weakness. We know he can get done standing still. I know it's hard when you're backtracking, but he doesn't get anywhere near. So that's 12-28. On 34 minutes, Leicester's next good attack is more old school. It's a bit more one-out runner bash, but it makes good ground. But they spill it 1 metre away, which means only one thing, that Bristol are going to try and go the length of the pitch with worldy passes, and they absolutely do that. They're just the best in the Premiership at doing it. And the game breaker, Ibitoy, is the one who injects the killer pace. And Steve Borthwick has to include him for me in his Six Nations squad, or I think he's officially the most boring coach in the world, because Ibitoy is such a difference maker. He's so quick, he's so strong. His offload is fantastic. Top try scorer in the Premiership for a reason. And this half was simply perfect. Every single attack in the 22 had been a try, And just before half-time, we have another one. Lovely passing from Van Rensburg. No, he's a basher as well, but he's got some good passes, freeing Ibitoy for a nice run in there. So 12:40 at half-time. And again, I don't really think there's much point talking about the second half when we've learned pretty much all we can from that first half and the game is over. Genge was fantastic. Like I said, breaking around the ruck, offloading, he's looking really good. So, lovely win for Bristol. Big statement, moving their joint top of the table. And they've got to be serious contenders for this Premiership title. Just imagine them in a final at Twickenham. It would be fantastic. Then we have Newcastle at home against Bath. And the scoreline would suggest Bath squashed them. And they kind of did, but Newcastle actually played pretty well. I think they actually probably played up to the potential of the players they had on the pitch, and particularly what came off the bench, because Bath are just star-studded. And we know Newcastle have a skeleton squad anyway, plus they're getting injuries. The midfield titan, Sammy Arnold, he's out now, massive miss, so they just don't have the players. But they kept going to the end. However, the first try goes to Newcastle. They pop the ball up in the air. It's a horrible swirling win. It breaks to Blamire because Hokanasiga, he's not the best in the air, particularly when it's a blowing wind. They know this. They definitely picked on him. And the ball breaks and Blamire sprints over, so that is 5-0. Bath hits straight back. Those forwards simply too big. Bash and go. And it's Alfie Barbary, who's come back from a concussion, looking an absolute beast. If you want a ball carrier, he is your man. That is 5-7 to Bath. But it's a really competitive half as Falcons fight fire with fire. They show they've got some bash too, as bulky blindside Freddie Lockwood, 2 big carries. The second one barrelling over. He'll have enjoyed that one. The home side go ahead 12-7. Then a bit of a hilarious try, to be honest, as Finn Russell tries to knock a crossfield kick low into the wind, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And then it gets hacked backwards and it goes to Tom de Glanville. That's a fortunate one. So 12-14. And then again, Thokanasiga, the reason why he's not back in international. He's not the best at judging kicks, handling, etc. And it's windy, like I said. And anyway, they get 3 points to get back in the lead with another kick. Then on 28 minutes, we see that forward power for Bath again. Bayliss is brilliant, pumps his legs going through contact. There's a reason why he's doing really well for Scotland. And Alfie Barbary again. Big run, sits down fly half Conan with a huge bump, but he can't ground the ball. That would have been a great one. Now, maybe he will go on tour with England in the summer when there's a few Lions away. Could be a good chance for him if you want that sort of play. He's definitely a little one-dimensional, I guess, because he's not the quickest getting around the park, but boy, he can carry. Then just before half-time, Bath do smash over. It's decent defence from Newcastle, but it's relentless from Bath, and eventually Will Stewart muscles over to take the lead there, so that's 15-19. Now, the will is strong for Newcastle, but they start losing players, which they just can't afford to do. Blamire's off, that doesn't help. Starting centre Stewart's off, that doesn't help. And then we have a maul move that sets up Charlie Yules, of all people, who powers through the small Radwan for the score, 15-26. I mean, it's a tough slog for Bath, but that slight superiority in players just tells it's not a bad effort from Newcastle. If you were their coach, I'd say, decent effort, guys. I'm not quite sure what else we could do. But when you start to roll off players for Bath, coming off the bench, you get Thomas Dutoy, Benno Urbano, Ted Hill, Jacko Kotsia. I think they all come at once. It's not really a fair game, to be honest. But hey, it's professional sport. It's, top-level sport. It's not meant to be fair. If you have a better team, then so be it. Then on 62 minutes, the big forwards set up a platform again. Big counter shove in a scrum. And Russell attacks, doesn't spread the ball, just uses his pace to spin and go over. 15-35, and that's really the game gone. Newcastle hurl themselves against the big Bath forwards, but no, they can't make that headway. They get turned over. Ollie Lawrence shows some good pace to barrel downfield. Powerful carry there. And then more quality off the bench for Bath, Sam Underhill, as he piles over with some more pick and go there. So too much fresh international quality coming off the bench. 15-40. Bath, they're here to stay at the top of the table. They can win ugly, as they did again there. Then in the fourth game, in awful conditions, we see Sale 28, Exeter 10. A bonus point win for Sale. Again, not a pretty game, but they get it done. Exeter get nothing again. Another loss. They're in big, big trouble, to be honest. Winless season continues. They're trying to play Henry Slade at 10 to get more control of the game, and he's fine, but that's not really the problem. They just aren't quite as good in almost every single area. They've got to convert one of these games. They've got to have an absolute worldie. But in the wind, in the rain, George Ford poked them around, and they just did the job basically. It wasn't a great game to watch in the first half. Probably the most consequential incident was an injury to Manifeo Abustu, who fell on his shoulder. Apparently it popped out and in again. Hopefully he'll be back in time for the Six Nations, but that's a little bit of a worry because he is still a bit of a threat. And again, Exeter, he was their main man in attack, but they couldn't break through that often at all. It took a while for the first bit of quality attacking. It was a nice delayed pass from Rafi Quirk, who's getting a rare start. Looked okay, I guess. Ben Curry, who's looking really good, he goes through the hole and he gets the killer offload as well for Luke James to stand up Greg Fislau really nicely for the first try. Then Sale get a little bit lucky at the end of the half as Exeter rush up. Inside centre, Towie puts a big tackle in on Rob Dupree as he misplaces the pass, but it bobbles along the ground and bounces perfectly for Joe Carpenter, but he shows really good pace to finish from halfway. So fair play there. So that's 14-3. Now the rain is blowing absolutely sideways. Ford's popping up the big spiral bombs. Sale get a chance from 5 metres. They splinter the Chiefs' defence as they push over the line. They don't score it, but it's a penalty try, so they get those 7 points. And the returning second row for Exeter, Dafford Jenkins, he cops a yellow to boot. Exeter having line-out troubles as well, but it's a fortunate bobble, and they actually get a tap penalty, and it's a Roots 1-2, as in Ethan Roots carries first and brother Jimmy carries second to score to get their lone try. So a little fortunate, but well taken by the Rootses. 21-10. And then one more score in this game, which wasn't a classic, but decent wet weather try. Decent maul from Sale, tight carries, decent tackles from the Chiefs, but just number of phases tells, and it's the returning second row again, this time for Sale, Johnny Hill back from suspension as he powers through the middle of the ruck very nicely. He'll enjoy that one for the bonus point try, 28-10. That's all she wrote. That's how you do it in the wind of the rain. They'll move on. Exeter are just searching for this win. Then the final game on Sunday was Saracens 39, Northampton Saints, the current champions, 24. And they were blown away by an imperious first half display from Saracens. They came back into it in the second half to make a good game of it, but no, it was over essentially in that first half. I think Hendy, the fullback, throws a dodgy pass in the first minute and it goes wrong from there. We see Fergus Burke poking through some nice grubbers which don't quite work. Finn Smith tries the same, but his is too strong. And Van Zyl, who had a really strong game, he spots a very short side guarded by Mitchell, but Mitchell alone, and he breaks cleverly blind, frees Elliott nicely. He chips ahead perfectly for Burke to score. Really strong game from Burke, like I said in my previous video when I'm talking about the possible England squad, which I'm sure I'll change for the Six Nations. He's the fourth choice, I would say. If there's an injury and they want 3 fly halves, I think he's in. He's showing he is good enough. On 18 minutes, it's more poor play from Northampton as George Hendy has a chance to catch Van Zyl isolated as they push up on a good kick, but far too rash. He rushes up too fast, gets stepped far too easily. Nice from Van Zyl, but still far too easy there. No, he is an England contender, potentially Hendy, but on this performance, I don't think he'll get in. And it sets up a length of the pitch drive, pretty messy, but it makes it. Sharp tip hands from McFarlane, that was the class there, as big Reece Carey barrels over Finn Smith. More grind phases, and Theo Dan, who was phenomenal in this first half, burst close, and eventually big Tom Willis barges over. It looks like a try, but no, another one ruled out. They had some potential tries, one I didn't mention actually at the beginning, 2 ruled out there, so they could have been further ahead in this second half. But Saints still under the pump, so on 24 minutes it's Theo Dan again. Big carries there, gets the momentum, and then Reece Carey is absolutely massive as he flops over. Clearly he's been told, play to your strength, you are big, get as big as you can, eat as much as you can. I'm sure he's massively strong as well, but it's working for him. Saracens know how to use it, and he's not going to get in trouble for not being fit enough, like Gatland said, because they just want him to be massive. So have a tactic, stick to it, fair enough. 12-0, and the Saracens forwards are well on top at this point. That man Theo Dan bursting away, really unstoppable as he bumps off James Rahm for a really good try there. 17-0, and then just to hammer it in, everything's going Saracens' way as a bouncing ball goes to Gonzalez. Then a second speculative kick bounces nicely. When it's your day, it's your day. Goes to Fergus Burke on a tap back. 24-0. What a first half for Saracens. Now, Saints have clearly had a rocket at half-time, and they needed one, and they start a lot better. Freeman, Litchfield making breaks. Their best team attack of the match goes up 50 metres before Tommy Freeman going hungry, looking for work. I love that from wingers. Steps Carey, then hands off Elliott. Great finish, good statement there from Freeman. He is a good attacker. He is very strong. He's not the quickest, but he is a good player when he goes looking for work, being hungry. I like that. So 24-7. And then on 49 minutes, not a turning point, but a bit of a chance for Saints. We get our friend, the bolt upright tackle, this time from Maritoje. He gets a yellow, and Saints are desperate to make the extra man tell. It's good line speed from Saracens to stop that ball movement, because they know Finn Smith loves to pull it behind, but he spots a chance over the top to free Pearson, who was a bit of a beast in his second half, as he can do. Massive carrier, wave after wave, and it's the man Tom Pearce that piles over in the end. So good try, 24-12. At least they're back in the game a little bit. 57 minutes, just as Saints are getting back into it. Tommy Freeman gets held up. Painful one here, gets stripped by Nick Tompkins, and Jamie George is on as a sub, and he piles over on the back of them all. So just as Saints were getting the momentum, it was shut, and that's kind of the game there. 29-12. The scoreboard pressure's on. They're trying to force the ball, a little bit desperate as Finn Smith just bats it on. Sinti hacks it on. Willis pops to Ben Earl on a big fast straight line to go under the post. And as you know, I like this as a tactic for England to use Earl as an impact sub, and that kind of showed what he can do there when he's fresh. So 36-12. Saints keep on attacking, but the gap's too big now. Nice offload from Smith to Hendy and some good phases. A bouncing ball's hoovered up by Slightholme. He's very quick, over 10 metres. 36-17. I hadn't put him in my Six Nations squad. I maybe should have. I was a bit worried by some of his defence in the autumn, but again, maybe that's the defensive system. But certainly finishing, he's fantastic. So maybe he should be in the Six Nations squad, considering that one. Just before the end there, Saints are pushing for the bonus point. They run from deep. Lovely hands again from Smith, freeing Hendy. Then we have a young scrum half, Archie McPartland, who's definitely, I think, an international in waiting. Really supports well to scorch home for a lovely try, for a bonus point. At least they get something from the match. You're not going to win against Saracens by conceding so many in the first half, but a good game in the second half. But Saracens push up the table there on 29 points to third. The Saints, though, still languishing down there in eighth on 15 points. They're going to really want to improve. I think they know they're slightly better than that position, but they have to show it throughout the 80 minutes. Anyway, those are my takes on round 8 of the Premiership. Pop all your comments down below. Love to hear from them. Have a good Christmas break, and I'll catch you after.